Friends, let's begin just by getting settled in our places. Um, and again, as always, really want to encourage you to set down whatever you might be drawing your attention away from our practice today, and close the windows on your screen or close applications and turn off your phone. For those who are not here at the beginning, I'm going to demonstrate how you turn off your phone like so. And let's take our seats and let ourselves arrive and check in where we are at the end of the week. Notice whatever feelings have been stirred up by the many terrible events of this week in our world, and perhaps in your personal life as well. And honor all those feelings: pain, fear, shame, guilt, anger. And you might also want to scan the week and see if you can call up some moments of joy and gratitude and pleasure. So acknowledge all those feelings and welcome them into our sacred guest house of our bodies and our minds and spirits. See where you notice any of those feelings in your body, any parts of your body where they might register. And just take a few minutes here to breathe together and acknowledge where we are today at the end of this week, with a lot of compassion towards ourselves, because these are hard times. Hard times call for a lot of compassion. Let yourself receive a few deep breaths and let your lungs expand, let your rib cage expand. You might want to roll your shoulders back, shoulder blades back a little bit to expand the rib cage and increase the capacity, and let the belly expand and release the breath. It might be helpful to inhale through the nostrils and out through the mouth 3 or 4 times. We're just sitting and breathing together and setting everything down. We really can understand our practice as we describe it as a kind of Shabbat practice of letting go and releasing, letting go of judgment, letting go of clinging to that which doesn't serve us. So as you exhale, see if you can release anything that you're holding on to from the week that really does not serve you, and let that go. And inhale a little bit of hopefulness, a little bit of shalom. And one more deep breath in, receiving it. And exhaling that which we'd like to let go of, and that which is in the past, we can let it go. And we can come more into the present. If your eyes have been closed, you can continue to stay with your eyes closed or your awareness drawn inward. And I'm going to offer some short teaching / suggestions for practice based on a sheet that I will share on the screen. And then we'll move back into meditation in a moment. And it's based on this week's Parshat Shemot, the beginning of the book of Exodus, which we've been dealing with quite a bit this week on the daily set. It's based on the scene at the burning bush in chapter 3 of Exodus, where the Torah describes it this way. This is the scene at the burning bush. An angel of the Holy One of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh appeared to Moses in a blazing fire in the midst of a bush. And Moses gazed, and behold, there was a bush all aflame, but the bush was not consumed. And Moshe said, Asura na ve'ereh et hamar'eh hagadol hazeh. Let me turn aside, Asura na, to regard this great sight, this mar'eh hagadol hazeh. And he asked the question, why doesn't the bush burn up? And when Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, when the Holy One saw that Moses turned aside to look, God called to him out of the midst of the bush, Moshe, Moshe. And Moshe answered, Hineni, I am here. And God said, don't come closer. Remove your shoes from your feet, for the place in which you stand is Admat Kodesh, is holy ground. I'm going to share two short midrashim, two rabbinic explications or elaborations on the story. And one of them has to do with Moses turning aside. The text said that Moses turned aside to look. He said, let me turn aside to look. Rabbi Yochanan said that Moses took 3 steps forward. That was the turning aside. And Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said he didn't step forward at all. He didn't move at all. He just turned his neck a little bit to observe the bush. And the Holy One of Blessing said to him, because nitzta'arta lirot, because you troubled yourself to look, be assured you will merit, I will reveal myself to you. And that's why immediately the Torah continues, God called him from the bush. In other words, revelation, insight, wisdom arose out of his exercise of his capacity for curiosity, to say, what is this? What is this? The Holy One of Blessing said to him, and because you responded, Hineni, I'm here, I'm fully present, be assured the time will come when you will pray on behalf of Israel, and I will answer you at once with the same words. And then the Midrash quotes Isaiah, who says, then shall you call, and Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh will answer. You shall cry, and God will say, Hineni. When we cry out, God will say, I'm right here with you. And finally, a famous Midrash on this passage about the burning bush that says that this episode comes, Lulamelcha she'ein makom panui b'lo shechina. What we learn from the story of the burning bush and Moses there is that there is no place, ein makom panui, without, below Shekhinah, without the divine presence, the Shekhinah, afilu sneh, even a bush. Divine can be found everywhere. So it's a beautiful basis for Jewish mindfulness practice. For those who wonder what's so Jewish about this, the whole story of Exodus unfolds because of Moses' willingness to engage in what we today might call mindfulness practice, to be able to exercise capacity for curiosity, for not knowing, for investigating the truth of what is happening without preconception, without assumptions, just to look with curiosity. And the passage really basically teaches us that when we exercise that capacity to look with curiosity and without the judgment, and to be open and to be fully present in the moment to receive what's happening instead of imposing our view of what's happening on what we see, then wisdom arises. God calls out to us, as it were. And God responds to Hineni by saying, Hineni, I'm here too. I'm with you. So I'd like to invite us to use that teaching in that text, that core Jewish mindfulness text from the Torah, as the basis for our practice today. Our question for practice is really exactly the same as Moses's. What is happening? What is happening? And simply to repeat that question over and over. And the wonderful thing about one of these midrashim is that you don't have to exert that much effort. All we need to do is turn slightly to elicit that response. Just to turn slightly. So let's find our position again and get settled in the seats. Again, we want to find a position that is one of kavod, of honoring and respecting ourselves. So however you feel about yourself today, give yourself some respect. Take your seat. Occupy your makom, your space. And find some posture that feels upright. Feel the support of the internal structure of your body. And if you can place the soles of your feet on the ground, and remember, just as Moshe learned, that the place where you're sitting right now is holy ground, Admat Kodesh. I have my shoes off. You don't have to have your shoes off, but the important part is to be mindful that the ground you're sitting on right now is Admat Kodesh, holy ground, and that there is no place that is devoid of God or the divine or Shekhinah. So as we sit, my invitation to you is to notice whenever any kind of judgment arises, any kind of opinion arises, and to not to repress that or push it away, but to use those as a moment to remember to return to curiosity. What is this? Mazot. What is this? So you can let your hands rest in your lap or on top of your thigh. And of course, very important to remember to breathe and to let the breath come and go at its own pace. Receiving breath and releasing breath. Letting ourselves be breathed rather than taking a breath and forcing it out. Just notice the natural process of breathing that happens on its own. So we'll sit together in silence and I'll bring us back with the sound of my voice in about 10 minutes. Let's stay curious. Mazot. What is this? If your mind has wandered away, a reminder that we're returning again to just releasing opinions and judgments, coming back again and again to the question, what is this? And if you're bored, you might find yourself bored. You might find yourself daydreaming. See if you come back to the question of what is this and what is boredom? What does boredom feel like? What's happening in my body? What's happening in the space around me? What feelings are coming up? What stories is my mind telling right now? How are things changing for me minute to minute? It's a lot to work with. There's a lot to practice with. And we breathe. As we come towards the end of our practice together, we continue to emulate Moshe, who learned that curiosity leads to revelation. So you're invited to see if you can hear or discern your name being called right now. Just as Moshe heard Moshe, Moshe, see if you can hear the divine calling your name repeatedly, and see what it would feel like to respond to that call by saying silently or aloud where you are, Hineni. I'm here. I'm fully present in my body, fully present in my feelings, fully present in my mind and spirit. Hineni, Hineni, Hineni. In that state of Hineni, receiving a few more deep breaths. Inhaling Shabbat and exhaling this week. As if you were absorbing the lights, the Shabbat lights, candles, in the form of a breath. receiving that light, that chesed, that loving kindness, that compassion, that hope, restorative rest, and exhaling all the toxins that have built up over the week. And if your eyes have been closed, you can begin to let them open and wiggle your toes and your fingers and come back to the group, come back to the space around you. I want to look around your room, orient yourself to that makom where you are, the place where you are. And I just want to end this practice by noting that the word hineni doesn't just mean really right here physically. As I mentioned, it means we're here in a full sense of being open and receptive, but it also means being prepared to serve, reporting for duty, and each of us has our own calling, our own work to do in this world. So when we say we're present and here, we're also saying we're ready to do the work that we're called to do, however each of us understands that. So may each of us be blessed in that work to do make the unique contribution that we're here on this earth to do, and wishing you strength and blessing, and may your Shabbat rest give you the resources you need to do that work well. And let's seal the practice today by welcoming those of you who are in mourning or observing a yard site. So we want to support you. Those who have the custom of joining in the mourner's Kaddish are welcome to do so. If you're not reciting Kaddish, you can be Hineni. You can be here, stay here for those who need you, to show up for them, to support them in their mourning. You could put the name or names of those you're honoring in the chat now or after we recite Kaddish. Thanks, Harry, for sharing the words on the screen. And if you're reciting Kaddish, please join me by rising in body or in spirit. You can unmute at this time. Yitgadal, Yitgadal, Shemi Rabbi, Ma'adrach, Vich Malchuto, Hayekom, Yomechom, Hayedekol, Yisrael, Ba'ala, Karib, Shmei Rabba Levarach, Man Shmei Rabba,
The microwave didn't do something I never use it for. It stopped and I thought it was broken.
Amen.
But I put in a time thing.
So much, friends.
Like I was trying to bake this potato and I used the little menu.
Yeah, please mute, please mute, please mute.
We got it. Although I am interested in the potato. Please put that in the chat if we need some recipes. We haven't really put together a daily set cookbook yet. Friends, thanks for joining us today for this journey together into Shabbat. Really a blessing to be with you. And as I said at the outset, it has been a very hard week full of terrible events. Hard to keep up with that, and we desperately need times like these to hit the pause button as we do on the daily set, and reset so that we can meet all those challenges wisely. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Harry, for holding our space together. You're welcome to continue to set if you like. You can turn the sound off on your computer or phone or device and continue to sit with us. I'm happy to respond to questions in the chat. So I'm going to keep that open. There is a source sheet, and Harry will share that. And I'll be happy to, I'll share it a little bit too. If you have a question you'd like to ask, please write question in caps, and I'll try to respond to your questions and maybe elaborate a little bit as well. Steve Katz writes, is it wrong for me to meditate upon taking in the darkness, exposing it to the illumination within, and then giving out the light, sharing the light with the world? Steve, I think you answered your own question very beautifully there. I don't know that I need to elaborate on that. Yeah, Diana, that's correct. It does sound like a Tonglen practice, a kind of purification of the toxins in the world. Are politics discussed? No, they are not discussed here. Maybe I'll say a few words about that. Although, of course, what's happening in the world very much influences what we do here. Our space is really, I would say, the way I describe it is as a pre-political space. That is, this is the space we need in order to be able to engage in the political and in the world as our better selves more often. So it's not apolitical, it's pre-political, and it assumes that we will act in the world, and hopefully will help inform our actions by helping us be able to respond more wisely, as we like to say. Yeah, Pam is asking the question. Pam remembers Moses initially feeling, oops, I missed it, inadequate to answer the call, right? So what happens after the passage, you're going to share, why don't I share the passage again? This is here we go. All right, so in Exodus chapter 3, Moses, of course, who's on the lam, he's a fugitive, having killed an Egyptian, and takes off for the wilderness, gets married, settles down, etc., and takes his father-in-law's flock out to pasture out into the wilderness, and that's where this occurs. So after this passage of Moses turning aside at the burning bush and getting his his divine calling, he does object and say, I'm not the right person to do this. I have a speech impediment. I'm not really the right person to do this. And like most prophets in the Bible, he is a reluctant prophet. You might say that he manifests the midah, the quality of anava, of humility, and understands that he feels that he himself is inadequate to the task, which seems to be a prerequisite to somebody having power or being an agent of divine power, which is really the way the Bible presents leadership. Leadership in the Bible are people who take on the role of being trustees of agents of the divine, in the way that all of us are intended to be agents of the divine. So I'm going to stop the share again, just to go back to your question, Pam. What should we do if we also feel this? I think the teaching is that we should feel, we all should feel, and we also wish that our leaders felt inadequate to the task and humbled by the task. Probably it seems to me the great political leaders have always had that, and perhaps which is not to say that they don't have the confidence to do that, but they have an understanding that it's not about them in some way. It's not about them. That is essential. And Moses, who later in the Torah is described as the most humble person on the face of the earth, struggles with that, but for the most part, responds in that way. Okay, just going to see any other questions. Lori, okay, maybe a little semantic, but I hear what is that in Mazot as opposed to what is this? Strikes me as feeling so differently. I'm embracing Lena to what is this? Um, that's an excellent question, Lori. Thank you. So the word Zot does mean this. And so if I were to do this again, I would probably say, what is this rather than what is that? So I more than accept your amendment in that regard. And the other thing that's really quite beautiful about the word Zot is that in Jewish mystical tradition, in the Zohar and Kabbalah, Zot, which literally just means this, is one of the names of God. It actually is synonymous with the Shekhinah, which once again is a fantastic Jewish mindfulness teaching that just noticing, having the question, what is this, leads us to see this as a manifestation of divine that's right before us in the same way of what happens at the burning bush. So I hear what you're saying. I think tell me if I got this right, that this feels in some ways more relational and that is more distancing in some way. So thank you so much for that. Joan, sending you condolences and comfort for the loss of your mother. May your memory be a blessing. And for you and for, I guess, all who suffer loss, I really honor what you're saying about listening for the voice of loved ones we've lost in this world in a different way. That's a beautiful way of describing it, because I think the Jewish mourning, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I hope helpful for people, that the Jewish mourning process, Shiva, Shloshim, the 7-day period, 30-day period, and the year-long period are all markers of the transition of relationship from the embodied relationship, the physical relationship of being in the same world together, to being in a different kind of relationship with those we've lost, whether regardless of the nature of our relationship with them, that the relationship still exists and continues, but in a different modality. And so really encourage you, and I love actually this idea of treating this process of transitioning to a different kind of relationship as a Moshe, like turning aside to say, how is it different now? How is it different now? How do I relate to this person differently now? How do I relate to them because they're no longer here physically? How do I relate to them because I'm further along in the mourning process? So thank you so much for that observation. Thanks, Eileen. Also, yeah, when I invited everyone to imagine your name being called, as it's called twice, in this case, there's also a question about what's the tone of the voice that we're hearing, right? It could be an accusatory tone, it could be a judgmental tone, it could be a harsh tone, or it could be a very loving invitation. So I very much appreciate, Eileen, you layering onto that invitation this sense of hearing the loving intonation of someone like Sylvia Boorstein, sweetheart, I need you, I'm calling you. And I'd like to imagine that's how Moses heard that. Um, hmm. Oh, Marilla's asking, Hebrew Poe is also here. How is Hineni different? Well, for those of you who grew up going through religious school, Hebrew school, as I did, when they took attendance, the teacher would take attendance, kids would respond Poe, Khan, or Hineni in my day. I doubt that happens very much these days. And everyone thought that was very cute, that there were all these three words, Hebrew words for saying, here, I'm present. But it's what they didn't teach me then, or us then, is that Hineni really is qualitatively different than po, here, which literally means, it's just like a word that indicates location. Whereas Hineni, because of the biblical context for that word, has this it's just really a deeply spiritual word that and rich word that has the connotation of being not only physically present but emotionally present. Like as we all know, someone can be physically present but not emotionally present, cannot be spiritually present. So Hineni really is being present in all dimensions of our being, and also has that connotation of non-judgmental loving presence, and openness, receptivity, being completely open and receptive. And that's why we get this story where Moses hears God speaking for the first time to him, as it were. You don't have to be, and it's not, you don't need to take this literally. It's just a story that illustrates that cultivating that state of being, of Hineni, of being fully present in all dimensions, open, receptive, and ready, prepared to respond. That's why I use that kind of phrase, I hope a military phrase is not unhelpful here, but like reporting for duty. I'm ready. I'm waiting for your instructions here, which is a little bit in tension with what follows, because then Moses says, well, I'm not so sure about this, not the guy. Anyway, thank you for that question. Po kan hineni. And all right, thank you all for all this rich stuff in the chat. I'm going to oh boy. I'm going to really enjoy going about reading your beautiful observations. And yeah, Carol, aren't we all hesitant at first? I don't know. I don't know if we're all hesitant at first, but I know we should be. I wish we were. I wish we were hesitant. So one last word before we close about this is I think the reason I'm drawn to that last connotation of the word hineni, of being ready to serve, ready to respond, is that it serves as a counter to the idea that this is a passive practice, and that being curious and open and receptive is to be passive. It's an active process. Curiosity is an action. It is a positive action to cultivate curiosity, especially in a time when we are also locked into our views and preconceptions, and those are constantly reinforced and bombarded with reinforcement all the time. That it is an act of spiritual, it's a spiritual practice to cultivate that openness. It's an active process. And we do this for the sake of being ready to go back out into the world. Just as we enter into Shabbat, we go into it with the expectation that we're not going to stay in Shabbat. Shabbat is only 1/7 of the week, 1/7 of the time we spend in that Shabbat mode. The rest of the time, we're supposed to be out there making use of the wisdom that we cultivate when we're in the Shabbat space. So I want to end with that and wish you all a sweet, restorative Shabbat, an opportunity to continue to cultivate curiosity, to notice that you're on holy ground, and when it's over, to get back to the work that we need to do in this world that really, really needs some wise action that's informed by Jewish wisdom. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Harry, thanks for holding our space. Thanks to each of you for being here. And we will be back next week, full week of practice next week. And we'll look forward to seeing you on Monday. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Be safe and be well. And we'll see you on Monday. Take good care.